Hello and welcome to the Startup Speakeasy by KPMG in India. Honest conversations with founders of India's emerging giants. My name is Karan Marwa and I'm here today with the founder of BharatPe, Shashwat Nakrani. Shashwat, good to see you and welcome to the Startup Speakeasy.
Same here, man. Same here. It's generally formal conversations with big four people. Good to be in an informal setup.
Yeah, we stay away from that for this one at least.
Yeah, that's...
Shashwat, I'd love to begin with your journey. I think you are someone who's obviously founded BharatPe and built it up to where it is today. But I don't think a lot of people know you, the real you, the person behind this. So maybe if you can start with just, your personal journey. I know you went to IIT, you grew up in Gujarat, but if you could just, talk to me about growing up and, what were you like? What were your motivations? And how was, growing up?
Yeah, like to begin with, like journey has not been that long. I'm just a...
I do realize that.
Yeah, so I was 2015 entry batch of IIT Delhi student, right? So like if I talk about my early days in childhood, I was more of a studious kind of person. With anybody can figure out, going into IIT, like generally people are like that. I grew up in a business family in and around like business folks. Being a Gujarati, like, there's more weight to the, how much money you're earning than, what's your education and stuff like that. So I've always been motivated by, people who built businesses from scratch and who built a name for themselves, who built employment in the society. There was a lot of respect where in my hometown where I'm coming from for people like that. So that was definitely a motivation, but never thought like I'll start this early in my life. So then like entire up to 12th, I was in Gujarat for my studies and then got admissions into IIT Delhi in 2015.
Okay.
So that's the first time where I came to a metro per se, coming from a tier 2 city. Like it was a bit overwhelming in the beginning.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So took like few months to settle down, but then like since then it's been like a lot of time in Delhi and it has grown over me. So I quite like it here now.
Given a choice, would you, prefer to move back to a quieter city or?
Yeah, so that's my ideal life, like, later in the age. At this age, like
You're far too young for that right now.
Yeah. So right now I prefer, this kind of a setup, but definitely there is an idea in mind to live a more peaceful, quiet life away from all the hustle bustle, So that's definitely there. And preferably in Gujarat. I like the culture and people that is there. And I keep visiting there, like, once a few months.
Family still there?
Family still there, yeah. And so, yeah, IIT Delhi was, again, started a bit shaky, but then it was really fun.
And what were you doing at IIT? Was it textile engineering?
Yeah, so it's very weird. It's the only IIT with that branch. And I got admission into that just because I wanted to be in a metro campus like IIT Delhi or IIT Bombay.
That was the deciding factor.
Yeah, that was it. And I was always sure that I'll not go into placements and stuff, but like start something of my own later on in life. And therefore, like wanted to have some exposure to like tier 1 cities,
Yeah.
things you can do outside of college, outside of your campus. And like me and my parents, we visited IIT Delhi, IIT Bombay, Kanpur, Kharagpur. But like I was stuck with either IIT Delhi or Bombay.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's where I got the admission, so came here. As far away as possible from home to get some freedom. And yeah, that was the idea. And so textile engineering was the branch. When I was going through all the curriculums, it was the lightest one. So I thought this will give me, more time.
Enough time to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And what was that? What were you doing, I guess, other than going to IIT?
Just exploring stuff, it's like when you are into this coaching and IIT studies, you like study 12 hours a day and like you don't get enough time to, explore other aspects of life.
Yeah.
I think I just wanted to grow up in that sense, to see what the world is, how the corporate businesses are set up, what things you can do, meet a lot of people, build some network, just how these people hang out, to cafes and stuff like that. So that was the idea. And that went pretty well. So took this curriculum. So IIT is very fun if you're living in hostels. I would say,
I believe
so there were people coming from home, but it's the hostel life is completely different. Like you've got all this glimpses in some of the movies, but it's actually true. Like it's crazy fun. And generally, I think what happens is because these people, when they're studying for entry into IIT, they don't get to do a lot of fun stuff, right? And then they come to college and they just, the hell breaks loose, Holy celebrations, all the festive celebrations, all the hostels that get together, splash water all over the balconies and all over the rooms, people lock your rooms while you're sleeping and then you're just figuring out how to get out, People close the electricity from outside at midnight, stuff like a lot of pranks, hardcore pranks, So things like that, immature stuff, but I think it's needed in, everyone's...
I think it's part of growing up, right?
That's part of growing up. And as I said, like these people were generally led a boring life before that. So I think it's they earned it, to have this fun. So I think that's the most memorable part about IIT, not the curriculum, not the lecture halls, It's just...
And some of the friendships you make, I get.
Yeah, that goes a long way, right? IIT Delhi, Bombay people are all over the world, Someone you were having fun with is, doing very well in life and, you are friends with them. So I think that's the best part. Like you are living among the best brains of the country. So I think that makes great bonds for life.
Lasting bonds. So 3 years at IIT?
Yeah, 3 years. So third year is where, my fun ended and like we were doing all this discussion about, what to do around UPI and stuff like that. And that's where, we started BharatPe within the campus itself.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, in the hostel rooms. I have some of the pics as well. Not sure if we can, share that. But like it was highly informal, just, having 3 beds in a room and like people sitting there and, doing stuff on like white canvas.
So who were those people? Of course, you were there. And
yeah, me and Bhavik, he's also a family friend from my hometown.
Okay.
Yeah, but he's like a lot older than me. He's 8 years older than me. So kind of like a big brother. But other folks were my batchmates. Some of them were also excited to like start up and being a part of, startup. I think IIT Delhi has a great culture of entrepreneurship.
I was going to say that. What is the startup fuel? Is it the giant samosas or is it something else?
Yeah, I mean, all the unicorn founders, right? The folks, who have done well. I think a lot of them are from IIT Delhi. So there is,
we've had a few on our previous episodes also, in fact, and similar stories about business plans getting made in, hostel rooms, over conversations.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, that's definitely a discussion among people who are inclined towards entrepreneurship or startups, that what's next, how can we be the next unicorn founder from the campus and stuff like that. So that's definitely ambition of a certain percentage of the people who go to.
But what was your motivator when you thought of this, and how did you come up with this idea?
Yeah, so as I said, like from childhood, that was my ideal life. I always wanted to build something from scratch and have that kind of an impact and respect in society. I think that's what motivated me. But why I started in my college days is because we were brainstorming on this idea, and the more and more we thought about it, it became very clear that like it has to start now.
Yeah.
Otherwise someone else will start it and like it's just not going to be relevant after some time. So I think timing was something that was perfect for that time. Like today you can't even think of starting a new UPI company and pasting a QR code. But that's become a completely scaled up game.
Yes.
So I think we had that conviction deep down that this is the time to start it, and like we took that plunge.
But how did it come to you? But what was the inspiration behind zoning in on digital payments and QR?
Yeah, so not a lot of people know it. So we So me and Bhavik, we started a different startup called Book My Haircut. So
okay.
sounds really stupid
Not
now,
something I
but
can use.
yeah. So basically it was like barber coming to your home on
Yeah.
demand, like kind of Uber for barbers. Like you book your haircut and someone, in and around you will come to you, like you match the supply and demand. Like sounds stupid to us now, but like we had big conviction then. So uh, we were like trying to build payment solutions, or trying to find payment solutions rather, from the market, to like how do we how do we accept payments from customers. And like we realized, like you can't get a payment gateway which is cheaper than 2% of the GMV, right? And that's a huge cost. Like our margin itself was 5%, and like
You can't give away 2% of that
to
too.
to the payment gateway. So like we were trying to dig deeper into that, and then we came across UPI, that it's free. It's something that government is pushing as well, and something which is part of the whole idea of democratizing the digital public infrastructure.
Right. Perfect timing again, as you said.
So we built that UPI collection solution for that startup, right? And while building that, because UPI, if you explore, like you can just Google the stuff, and it's not very difficult to figure out how to do UPI. So basically we did that for that startup, and then when we started like thinking more, this sounded as a much bigger opportunity than what we were doing. So that's when, like it took a few days to like just realize that let's get away with that business that needs a lot of money, and it's basically difficult to build supply and demand both together.
Yeah.
Right, kind of solving like Uber kind of a problem which needs like billions of dollars. And so let's drop that, and let's like work on this, which seems like something which is really like not a lot of people in the market were aware about UPI. Well, there was a lot of people doing transaction among friends, like P2P transactions, but if you look at merchants, we didn't see a single UPI accepting merchant.
Yeah, these
Like
still early days.
Yeah. So that's where we saw the gap, that there are companies, and big companies, deep pocketed companies, who are building solutions for consumers on UPI. There is definitely a gap in the market where you can go on the acceptance side of the transaction and still be part of the transaction, because UPI is interoperable.
Right.
So you don't need to really have a consumer app to start accepting. And that's the opportunity we saw, that you onboard a merchant and all the transaction he can accept from all the apps in the world will go through you. So you get the access to that kind of a data and insight, and basically you just need to crack the merchant side of a piece, and you become part of transaction. So that's where the idea was, that we'll keep building products which are focused and just solving for merchants' life.
So do you remember who was the first merchant you signed up?
Yes, the first merchant was so since we were in and around IIT Delhi, so the first merchant was a small cafe in IIT. Actually, it's
Why am I
called
not surprised?
so it's called Masala Twist. I think it's still there.
It's still there.
Yeah. So that's where, and even before we built our QR, right, we wanted to test how good is UPI acceptance, right? So we went to all these merchants, and then we stand up there a whole day to see how many transactions are coming, how many people are coming. Yes, and we educated people how to use this. And then, like just few days down the line, you realize that if a small shop in this area has this potential, like think about all the shops in India, like crores of merchants, and like it's a huge problem to solve.
So this was right out while you were at IIT. So at what point did you decide that, look, this is what I want to do, and I'm done with IIT?
Yeah, so basically not done with IIT. So IIT Delhi, interestingly, gives you that opportunity to like drop out for 2 years, do something.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, do something of your own. It's called entrepreneurship leave or something. And then you can come back and get your degree. So you have like plus 2 years to complete your degree. So there's no like, so we didn't take a big risk in that terms, but like
that kind of
there
makes
was
sense.
some convincing to the parents of all.
Yeah, how did they take it?
Yeah, my parents were pretty okay because I again come from a business family. They understand that it's you're trying out something. It's just first case like you'll lose a year or something.
They're okay with you losing that year.
Yeah, they were
That's a
okay.
big thing with Indian parents, right? बेटा पहले पढ़ाई करो फिर
Yeah. So I think in Gujarat it's a bit different. They focus more on doing something on your own than education and
it
degrees.
has tremendous value, I think.
Yeah. So the Gujarat has very deep like entrepreneurship DNA.
Oh,
I think.
yes.
Yeah. And very old. So yeah, so coming back to this, like it was third year of our college, and so we had this conviction and we went ahead and built this QR code, right? So we started visiting all these markets in NCR. So Delhi NCR में कोई ऐसा market नहीं होगा जहाँ मतलब on foot हम गए नहीं, like starting from Rohini, GK Defense Colony, Gurgaon में Supermart, Lakshmi Nagar, East Delhi.
And would it be easy to convince
people on the other side, right? What was in it for them to sign up?
Yeah, so that's the thing, right? So we basically this UPI QR code, nobody was there in the market to promote this. Everybody had their own QR code. So people had like 2-3 different QR codes and 2-3 different settlement cycles for all the big apps that consumers were using. We went there pitching them as an all-in-one QR code, right? That all these apps, all these logos are there on the QR code. It'll work with all QR code. It is free of cost. So I think the proposition was kind of like nobody really very small portion of people said no to it. Right? There's nothing to lose for them and really a lot of convenience factor. So and
the
that
convenience
really
was the lever for them.
Yeah. So and of course the zero MDR thing, right? So at that time it's like we quickly realized, with all these visits to different markets and merchants, that this is not something where you can charge money. People and merchants in India are not wired to pay money on their own
money for receiving money.
Money, right? So and they're like cash भी तो है मेरे पास, cash में थोड़ी खर्चा लगता है.
Yeah, so I'm credit card पे भी दो कहता है 2% आप दे दो extra charge.
And this is a debit transaction. So again, like nobody really wanted to give money. So we quickly realized the model should be something else, whether it's a subscription model or whether it's a credit based on this transaction data. So these kind of ideas were there in mind, but we definitely knew that MDR is something that we don't want to go in the market with because it will not help in scaling.
Yeah.
So zero MDR and all-in-one was the biggest pitch. Like I think merchants had never seen that before, and to them who don't understand the technicalities of UPI and stuff, it came as magic, right? कि दूसरी app से इस app में हो जाता है. We just want to have this one QR code and like 100 plus apps are accepted and all those things that never heard of. So it was pretty easy convincing. So I think that went very deep into our own conviction into the business. And that's why we
I think it's also important to get that validation early on, right? Because
I think I'll just advise to the audience for the podcast as well, whenever someone starts to think about starting up, the first thing to do is to get to the customer and figure out what do they really want, and whether what you are thinking is really what is the need in market.
Fail fast if you are going to fail. But
yeah, I mean a lot of people go to investors and startup founders for advice whether should I do this or no. I think much more important is to get some early customers and get that product market fit, what will scale. So yeah, within few months, we had this really deep conviction that this is something which is gonna be big. We started talking to few of the seed investors. Some of them were very interested. So then thought, if we are going at the whole fundraising road, it will not be right to you can always come back. So that's when we thought of at the end of third year, let's not go for the fourth year classes.
So logical break that time.
Yeah, because you have plus 2 years to
come back,
lose all your credits and all your courses. It's up to you whether you want to take a break or. So that's how it was done.
That's a fantastic journey. Was there a higher purpose to this? And I was chatting to you right before the podcast about something I read just last week from Clayton Christensen.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about the prosperity paradox, where he says that that multiple things that are required to create prosperity at scale for nations. This is about nation building. And a couple of concepts that stuck in my mind were, addressing the, what's called non-consumption. So you're not competing with anyone else. You're actually going and creating your own market for yourself. So banking the unbanked, for example. And then he also talks about what are market-changing innovations, which again goes back to the same thing, that you're creating your own market. Was that ever in your mind that, I'm doing this because, there's a larger purpose to this?
Yeah, sure. So I think in the beginning, the only idea was to, build a business, make something big out of it, right? And I always
So आपने कभी सोचा था इतना, was that always the plan that this will be at this scale?
Yeah, when we started meeting the merchants, right, we realized, it's something much bigger than what we were thinking.
And what are you at today?
We have like
millions of merchants.
1.5 crore merchants on board with us. So it is pretty big, and I think there's still room to grow in terms of like getting them more engaged, getting different products sold to them. So there's a lot of getting deep is something that we're thinking of going forward. But yeah, definitely there was conviction that it will be big, and I deeply believed business leaders have their contribution in making societies better and making the countries better at some point, right? Generating employment, and that's the kind of spirit that I also seen growing up in Gujarat. And then basically that was the idea, right? But later on, as we started building business, right, and beyond a point, you need more than money as your motivation. Yeah. So I think and while and true for even employees, right? Not everyone is really motivated by money. Like you need a higher purpose.
So in fact, the prevalent thinking is that very few people are actually motivated by the salary or the compensation. That's just hygiene. It's everything else that they do at their
workplace that's more important.
That's the thing about top talent, right? They will get a job very easily, so they're not really there to survive and have a good food, right? So they really want to have that excitement in life, be part of a bigger purpose, mission, and I think that's the kind of people that take the company forward as well.
Yeah.
So in terms of attracting a lot of good talent as well as get a lot of work done at the company, this was definitely a part of a bigger mission to what kind of a change we are bringing to people's life, especially when we started facilitating loans through our platform, right? So that's life-changing for a merchant who wasn't basically part of a formal credit economy earlier. So based on these QR transactions, so it became very convenient, plus they got access to credit through this. So
did you ever think this was going to be obviously it was a risk that you were taking, right? With no credit history and no way to sort of rate them on their ability to repay. At least at that point when you started out.
Yes, it started as a pilot only, right? We were not really sure how big it will be. But it turns out, there's a higher problem of, how do you underwrite or how do you measure his affordability of repayment? Yeah. And that's the aspect that was our advantage. You know how many transactions are happening, how many customers
have the data sitting at the back.
Yeah. So it turns out it's more to do with affordability than the intent itself. And of course, you have this basic guardrails that any unsecured lending would do. And we were anyway doing through partners. So it's partners' conviction on our basically transactional data as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of learning and a lot of different pilots, and even today there's a lot of pilots happening in the pipeline. But there's a evolved basically understanding of how a merchant behaves in terms of credit repayment as well as intent. So it's a process of evolution, but it's been like 3.5 years almost since we did first pilot with the lending.
Right.
So it's an evolved version right now.
No, it's interesting, and I have two follow-on questions just related to what you just spoke about. One is sustaining innovation, right? And I know you've got a number of other products that you've just launched, and we'll talk about a few of them hopefully. But how do you sustain innovation at scale, right? Because what you're doing now from where you were, you said 1.5 crore merchants already, and there is the potential still out there. Wow. What is the DNA that you created in the organization? Is there a DNA that you can create? What's the secret sauce to keep innovation going? Because that's the risk, right? That someone else will catch up and possibly do the same thing that you're doing. How do you keep innovating and keep that engine going?
Yeah, so I think it's very important especially in markets like fintech, right? So uh, I think there has to be a very strong DNA of any organization, and naturally it builds up. Like there is no conscious efforts of like building a culture or DNA, but naturally by the way of how you're operating, how you're approaching a problem, it grows up in the company. So from day one, like we had this approach, and I think that's how we came up with the name of the company as well, Resilient Innovations, right? So you have to be resilient. I think that's what we always wanted to have, that culture in the company. And I think that is, what BharatPe is all about. So, any kind of problems, you always go into solution mode, right? And you rightly said, like any innovation, any new product launch has a time frame where you can move things. After that, it becomes commoditized, and then you move on to next things. I think that's where, our payment industry, at least digital payments landscape in India, has been evolving very, very fast.
Yes.
Yeah, so the digital payments in, I think, our case and a lot of fintechs is basically you can evolve a lot on, your payment products. So
Yeah.
it started with QR code, then the whole soundbox phenomena came into picture,
Yeah.
which nobody could thought of from beginning. So I think it's very inherent, different experiments and pilots you keep doing with your customer. It has a lot to do with how close you are with your customer, right? So and we have this strong DNA of understanding and behaving like a customer in the company while making any decisions. We have this whole, on the wall of the office, we have all the pictures of our real merchants and their story.
Okay.
How they, how we helped them in
Yeah.
their life, and they got some credit, or they got some extra transaction, they got extra customers, and that really, I think, builds that kind of a culture in people to like keep them in mind while making your decisions.
Customer first.
Yeah. So I think that's very important, and always look, every 6 months there has to be a new product coming in.
Yeah.
You go deeper and deeper into a customer, and that's how I think you have to sustain a customer rather than you have to sustain a product. That's how I put it.
Easier said than done. Any stories that stand out? I'm sure you have lots of them, but where someone's reached out and said, "Look, you really changed my life."
Yeah,
I'm sure it happens all the time.
It happens all the time, because as I said, like we've like facilitated almost 15,000 crores worth of loans.
Yeah.
And average loan size is 1 lakh rupees. So a lot of people who benefited from it, and that's the biggest life-changing thing for them, because they never thought like they'll be part of formal economy, right? And they don't.
Did you ever think you were going to do this?
Not at the beginning. Yeah, not at the beginning. Like it has turned out to be really well, and I think it, like we are just a 6-year-old company, right?
Yeah.
So it has evolved very fast. Like we're always catching up to where our business is going. So that's a constant journey, and hopefully it will continue.
I'm sure it will. And which leads me to the second question I had. I think now you started out, I think when we just started this conversation, you said you were, you started out at one end of the transaction ecosystem, which was the vendor or the merchant.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of come full circle, hasn't it, with the consumer app?
Yeah, so it's been like a long time since we've been building for merchants, and still I think that is the core of the company. Now the idea is, how do you basically launch consumer products to help the merchant ecosystem itself?
Yeah.
So basically we want to
catering
give
to their personal financial needs, is that?
Yeah, so you enable customers to like transact more at BharatPe merchant, right? How do you give a better experience at a BharatPe QR code or point of sale for a customer who's using your product? So I think it all, directionally will come down to how it's benefiting to merchant ecosystem. But yeah, we definitely are going into the consumer play.
Yeah.
So we recently launched our UPI app. So try it out, give any
Certainly.
feedback. The product is stabilizing right now, but as soon as it's ready, like we're gonna scale it up.
Certainly. Yeah, well, and what's next? Again, I know this is possibly one area that you're expanding into, but anything else that, that again, where I'm coming from is, you've achieved a lot in 6 years, and at your age, and to keep yourself motivated, to keep going at this, what is it that motivates you now, and what are you working towards, and for the future?
Yeah, like I think, first of all, it's not me, it's the company who has done very well. There's a lot of people and a lot of contributions who have taken it forward.
Yeah.
But in terms of me, like what motivates is the new things which keep coming into the whole digital payments ecosystem, right? UPI has become so big, but it's like 99% of it is debit transactions.
Yeah.
And I'm personally very bullish on credit on UPI proposition.
Mhm.
I think it's, structurally gonna change, how we transact and basically bring a lot of people under the credit as well.
Yeah.
So credit card penetration is like very, very low
Very low.
in our country, right? POS penetration is extremely low. Like you are having like 50 lakh maybe POS machines in entire universe,
Yeah.
while QR codes might be 5 crore QR codes. So basically you're saying that, you can accept credit at 5 crore point of sales than a 50 lakh machines.
Yeah.
So it's really expanding the acceptance universe, and I think gradually it's going to expand the issuing side as well, where you have people having all these credit lines to like start transacting at UPI.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the biggest thing I think behaviorally is going to change in the country itself.
But what's the personal motivator for you? What keeps you going?
Yeah, these are the kind of new things which get launched, right? And with the NPCI and other bodies basically proactively working on it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of excitement to keep working with them to come up with a new product, new ideas. Basically, any new thing that you can do or any startup can do, they want to do it at the central level so that everybody has access to it and it's a level playing field. And I think that's
Which
really...
goes back to, I think, what we were chatting about the regulator also.
Yeah, so that's, I think,
responsibility to create that level playing field.
Yeah, I think that's very important for a country like ours, right? Where you really want to democratize or commoditize, in fact, these kind of products to like bring, to make people's life better. So that's, I think, that's something that really motivates.
Yeah. On the personal side, I've heard, movie buff. Is that right?
Yeah, I watch a lot of content. Yeah.
What are you watching right now?
Right now, I'm watching The Penguin. It's a TV show.
Yeah.
It's from the Batman universe. It's really good. Like, but I watch like different kind of languages. South Indian, Korean. All kinds. I don't care. Like I watch subtitles.
Is that what you do after a long day at work, or how do you unwind after a long day?
Yeah, I do watch on weekdays as well. But weekends is also I watch a lot of them. Yeah, definitely an area of passion.
Any other passions that you'd like to share?
I think I want to have some time to pursue different passions, but right now I think it will take some more time for me to get, some time out for these things. But otherwise I regularly go to gym. Yeah. So that's something, I don't miss even on a busy day or regularly, like 1.5 hours is kept out. And I think that's where, yeah, I think that's a stress buster as well. Yeah.
Shashwat, what do you think about starting up now? I think there's a lot of conversation, right? That there's no better time to start up now. And I think when you started up, of course, 6 or so years ago, the world was different. I think, and coming from, the business background possibly helped, but I think this whole fear of failure and even, stepping out of college, formal education to do this, I think the receptivity to that is a little better than it was in 2015 at least. But what could be your advice to someone who's starting up now?
Yeah, so basically, like I would not advise to start right after college or from college.
Yeah,
although I've done it,
hindsight,
but yeah, because you are really thrown into a whole sea of things which you don't even know about.
Yeah.
So it's always good to have some idea of basic things, how things work, right? I didn't know whether salary gets credited before you start working or after you start working. Is it first or is it the month end? So all these basic things, like, because I had other people to guide me, right? Investors and stuff like that. not everyone will have
They
that
have those.
privilege. So I would advise to like get the basic understanding, maybe work at a startup, intern at a startup, and see what the whole buzz is about, how people are approaching solving problems. And if that's clicking, then think of something, right? And when you think about starting up, the problem has to be big enough first of all, and your solution should really solve it, not just in your head, but through it really has to solve for a customer.
It's not easy to get there.
Yeah, so I mean, don't start up before these basic two things you figure out. I think that's what I would say, because people, I talk to a lot of people. People come to me. People get excited with a lot of ideas, and then they think the whole future in the mind. But the real reality hits when you go to a customer and sell it.
Yeah.
I think it's very
That's the
important
validation.
it's very important to go and try to sell what you're building, and then you really get that conviction deep down. Yeah, and then think of doing something. It's not investor, it's not you who needs to be convinced, it's the customer.
Yeah.
So that's a basic thing, but that's 90% of people miss out on this.
And would you say the ecosystem is better today than it was?
Yeah, much better. Like there's a lot of investors in the country who want to bet the right founders. The overall, I think Indian market is something like entire world is looking up to. Like is preferred over China, Japan, which are traditional like investing markets. So I think there's a lot of money getting directed into Indian startups, and it will only grow from here.
Yeah.
That's what I believe. And the ecosystem is evolving a lot. There are for angel investing, there are platforms, there are syndicates, so get access to a lot of capital. And then definitely there are advisors, there are people who have gone through these kind of things. There are founders you can bring as angel investor. A lot of founders are investing, I am investing. So yeah, definitely much more evolved than what it was.
Do you invest?
Yeah, I invest in a lot of startups.
And what are the filters you use when you...
Yeah, I look at the person's basically founding teams, hunger, right? Are they passionate enough for the problem they're solving? That's one. And second is the problem has to be like big enough, large enough. Yeah. So because you'll never succeed if your TAM is not, big enough. So like you will succeed, but you'll never like grow, scale it up. So otherwise, I think the larger idea is to back the next, generation of founders, which I think every founder will have a part of his mind that, how I want to
be powered
to the ecosystem. Like we invest like 10 lakh, 15 lakhs kind of small checks, but like the more basically idea is to like help them, brainstorm into how
that
to
goes
take
a long way at that point in someone's...
Yeah, and I think more than money, people are looking forward to like real brainstorming and advice as to how you want to shape the
That's
company,
more
how
valuable.
you go forward. And as a founder also, you get to have a small place in different sectors and industry. Like you get to see what's happening in different industries if you keep investing. So I think that's also a motivation. Like beyond your own industry, you get to see how it's evolving otherwise.
Possibly my last question. What have been your role models or influencers?
Yeah, so for me personally, like there are people, like I'll not take names, but like in Gujarat, you have a lot of businessmen who come from, a background where they didn't have money to eat or live, probably, forget about better life, but just, live.
Survival.
Yeah, just survival. And then they've done, smallest of the task in their life, smallest of the work in their life to like clean houses and stuff like
The
that.
dignity of labor, I think.
Yeah, and I think they've grown up to be a billionaire as well in their life. And I think that's very, very impactful as well as motivating and
humbling too, right? I think if you don't lose that, if you've gone through that journey and orientation,
you really value what you have.
You really value what you have, exactly.
And you try to make good in the society with the privilege that you got, right? So I think that's something that you can't really get from other places where, someone who has built it from scratch and really like value what it has built. I think I want to value whatever I've got in
Yeah.
life. So I want to like have that kind of life.
And if there was one extravagance you would allow yourself, what would that be?
Sports cars,
Sports cars? Do you drive one right now?
not right now. Yeah.
Excellent. Shashwat, thank you so much for coming here and spending time with us and sharing your thoughts.
My pleasure.
Good, candid conversation.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate the candor and the insights you've given us. And hopefully people listening will also do that. Wish you all the best. Wish BharatPe all the best.
Thank you.
And look forward to seeing you again.
Same here.
Thank you.
Thank you.